Hello everyone, this is Spliced, and today I'm going to be talking about the, I'd say underrated, more so, vehicle on the ground tanks, the STAGHOUND. I think this vehicle is absolutely amazing. Before I talk about anything, I'm going to mention this strategy right here. This little thing, I don't know if anyone knows about this or if you guys know about this, but basically, you can actually reverse tanks or any vehicles of any sort in the spawning ready stage. If you reverse the tank, it actually goes at full speed, so you can actually do that to get a little bit of extra distance if you need it. So anyways, in this video, I'm going to explain every step of each wave and explain my process and thought behind it and why I did everything that I did, the mistakes that I made, and the improvements that I have made from other games that I've done, and just tell you guys how I did get 47 kills without dying in this really powerful, underrated vehicle that I think everyone should try out. Before that, though, let's take a look at the perks that I have for him. Alright guys, so here I am at the specializations for the STAGHOUND. As you guys can see, I went more along the left side instead of the right side, and it might seem a little bit confusing. You might think, why aren't you not using the 20 million autocannon that says, or 20 millimeter, sorry, autocannon that says that it's for infantry and light armor? Well, there's a reasoning for that, and I'll explain that right now. So before, what I used to do is I used to go improve loading, deploy supplies, 20 million autocannon, and then the Incendiary Launcher. But now, after I realized that there's actually a better build for this tank, is actually going improved loading mechanism, down to deploy supplies, then to Little John adapter, and then the Tulip dumbfire rockets. Now, why is this important to go down the left side rather than the right side? Well, for the map Aerodrome specifically, it actually makes this tank very powerful because you can actually get height advantage. You can stay back without having to worry about anyone attacking you, since on the game mode breakthrough, the enemies don't get tanks until around the 3rd round. So until then, you're pretty safe from enemy explosives if you keep your distance. But anyways, I'll get into that in a minute. So the first one I went with is improved loading mechanism. Rate of fire for the primary weapon increases by 20%. I took that over the spawning scope because the spawning scope is for your teammates. It's really useful to have, but if you're going for high kills, you really don't really want to spot for your teammates, so you want to get all the kills for yourself. It sounds greedy, but you guys can choose between which one you like more. Deploy supplies is good for helping your teammates if you drive by them to go resupply, or if you're relocating, you just drive by them, give them some supplies. It gives you some points, but it helps your teammates out to keep the pressure, so then you can let them go ahead while you stay back. The whole purpose of this tank is not to go in, not to rush the enemy, and I do have some mistakes of that in the future of this video that I'll commentate upon and show you guys my mistakes to not do. Then we're going to go to the Little John adapter. Now this is where people might think, why not just go for the 20 millimeter autocannon? It destroys infantry. I agree. It does a really good job of taking out infantry. However, I think this is much better. And I'll explain. So this has 30 shots. You can shoot this cannon 30 times, whereas this one, I believe, has 300 ammo, which is a lot. It is a lot. But the way I thought about it is, it's not so much about the ammo. It is about the efficiency of how safe you can be while killing the enemy with these weapons. So, for example, this one you have to hit them about 3-4 times to the body to kill them, or about 5-6 times if you're shooting next to them on the ground, which is good. It's really decent, does the job, does its damage. However, the chances of them surviving against this when they're not paying attention towards you is a little bit higher than, say, this from a distance. If you're going to play at a distance at a safe place, this is actually much better to use than this. When I use this, I used to go close to the enemy, and it shreds. When you're really close to the enemy and you're shooting them right at their face, they're overwhelmed and you can do a lot of damage. However, there's only so many enemies you can shoot at a time with this, and before you know it, you're getting double Panzerfausted and you're dead. So I tried to switch it up and tried to play more of my safe playstyles that I like to play when it comes to vehicles. So when I tried this, I realized, okay, so the Little John adapter, what does it do? It increases the muzzle velocity, so it makes the shot go much faster through the air. However, it doesn't have a huge blast radius, and boy, is the blast radius very small. Like, you'd have to shoot at their feet in order to do blast damage, and even that doesn't even kill them. It does like half their HP. So this is more so for hitting either right next to them or hitting them square on. And you have 30 shots of it, so you don't really have to worry so much about missing. I'm going to explain how you can get so many kills with it. So, the number one thing when it comes to distancing yourself from the enemy is know your distance. You have to know the drop off of the weapon, and you have to know how to lead your shots with this weapon, with this tank, of course. Just like all weapons in this game, just like everything that has bullet drop, so does this weapon. If you're going to be at a sniper range, getting direct hits while shooting a moving target is a little bit difficult. It takes some time to get used to. So I chose this, and I realized that I've been actually getting a lot of decent amount of kills directly on the enemy with this. Compared to this with a distance, of course, we're comparing with distance, this actually can do a lot of damage to enemies and actually kill a lot of enemies before you have to reload compared to this. I found that I had to reload and repair far greater amount of times with this adapter, the 20mm autocannon, than I had to do with this, mainly because of how close I am with this. Like, I'm so close to the enemy all the time, they have a much better chance of destroying my scout tank. So I find myself repairing, and when I'm repairing, I don't have time to shoot the enemy, and I'm losing time on kills. Now, the other reason why I did this tree is because of these. The tulip dumbfire rockets are pretty good. They're actually pretty good. They're not great, but they aren't bad either. It depends on how you use them. So the way these dumbfire rockets are meant to be used is when you're shooting at an objective, for example, like the first objective A or the first objective B on breakthrough, very good. There's buildings where the enemies are. However, the blast radius is pretty small, so you have to shoot it when the enemies are all standing still and they're not expecting you, and you want to just quickly kill them without them realizing. So you shoot that all over them and they die. You get like a quick 1 or 2 kills. Maybe it's good for one guy when you have to, if they get too close and you panic shoot like a rock that's next to you. It's very helpful for that. And it's really good against tanks. However, I don't have an example of that in this video. Then we have the Incendiary Launcher. The reason, this is why I chose the tulip over this when going this way, is because you can get these two compared to these two. And the Incendiary is just for stopping enemies from getting close to you. However, on these maps, it doesn't really work that well. And then AP rounds just for tanks, and there isn't really many tanks on breakthrough, or even on this map in general. And I can explain that the Little John adapter is more than enough to actually take down a tiger tank by itself. It's actually really cool, and I can explain that later if you guys are interested. Anyways, so there's my specializations. I took too long on this. Let's get back in the gameplay, and I'll show you guys how I got 47 kills and 0 deaths. Alright, so now we're back in the gameplay here, and basically where I am is I'm sort of towards spawn, but I'm on a hill, and I'm looking at the A cap point. You can also look at the B cap point sometimes when it's capped by the enemy team, but I do prefer looking at A if it's not capped yet over B. And the reason for that is most enemies are on A than they are on B, but also because the field, the way that the terrain is built, is very easy for this car to get some easy picks on enemies and to find where they are exactly. To get the fall off damage, I got really used to it, so I was able to hit a lot of enemies with this. So the way you get kills with this tank is you always want to start off shooting the enemy with the main gun, the first gun, because if it hits near the enemy close enough, you can do some damage, and then you want to finish them off with the MG turret, the machine gun. This is the main source of kills you'll get, is through the MG turret, not the actual cannon. Really most of your kills are going to come off of people that are not actually looking at you. This is a really pick and choose kind of tank where you can sit back, relax, and just start picking off kills, especially in this game mode, because the enemies do not have any vehicles of any sort to counter you with, so it's actually kind of cruel to do it this way. But if you want to get a high kill game, this is a very efficient way to do it. I'm now going to move on to the next stage and show you guys where to go from here. Alright, so if your teammates successfully capture the first area and you're moving on to the next, now you want to quickly pressure the enemies and get rid of them so you can start off the next wave. If you are out of bounds, do not worry. You will not be targeted for out of bounds. It will wait for you to get back into bounds first, so you can actually stay here as long as you want. If you look at the map right now, it'll put me out of bounds, but I will not be getting the countdown. So as soon as I go back into bounds, and then if I go out of bounds now it'll start counting me down. I like that feature. It's really useful to know for sometimes if you're not paying attention. So before I go and reload, I decided to put a little bit of pressure onto the enemy. So this is what I do in the second round. Since they only have one objective, it makes it a little bit easier to funnel the enemies and make sure that they're not going to sneak around you. And so basically, what I like to do is I like to feel out the enemy and see where they are exactly. I like to stay with my teammates in this first area, and then I like to pick off some enemies that are inside the airport, the hangar, I should say. I just give a little bit of damage, just keep sniping them a little bit more, and then this is where you go afterwards. This is the part that I choose to go towards, is on top of the hill. Height advantage is always key when it comes to these game modes or this map. When it comes to this tank, you want to have that height advantage. You want to be able to see everything, so you can be able to pick and choose, and you can also strategize where the enemy may be coming from and make sure that they don't get anywhere close to you. So here I decide to camp a little bit on this hill and look at this small corner into the airport. It gives me a good visualization of where the enemy is, and sometimes they pop in there and I get a little bit of kills, but also I get to see the whole right side of this hangar, so therefore I can pick off enemies that are trying to sneak around and kill my teammates and stuff like that. On top of this hill as well is something important. I always have to keep a watch on top of this hill, because enemies might be sneaking up with their assault class and try to Panzerfaust me. It has happened before, and it will definitely happen again. Mistakes can happen with this vehicle, and you can die at any moment, since this vehicle is pretty much a glass cannon. It only takes 2 Panzerfausts directly hitting this vehicle to kill it, so you need to be very extra careful with it. So there I just failed my rockets a little bit. I didn't really have much use for them at the moment, so I decided to just lobby them out like that, since I was going to go reload really soon anyways. Alright, so after I reloaded at the station, I decided to go back, but I decided to go around the back side of the enemy to try to get some quick picks and some quick kills, because I was a little bit eager for some extra damage. I do not recommend doing this if you look to survive throughout the whole match. I was just being more aggressive this way. I shoot some rockets and take out this enemy, and I aggressively shoot as I drive. However, I stop right next to an enemy without even realizing it, and then I have to quickly kill him. Thank God he didn't really have anything that could take me out, or else this would have been a serious problem. Alright, so now over here I decided to reposition a little bit. So another thing that's key to note about these game modes is that if enemies are progressing onto your capture point, you will start to spawn behind the capture point. And the respawn point for A in this hangar would be more towards the next objective, where the next A flag will be, which is in this camp area. A lot of players will start to spawn here, so you want to maintain a good position next to it so you can start picking off enemies who are respawning, which will help your teammates push in because they'll have less enemies to deal with in the hangar, and you're keeping them in the spawn points, so then they can they'll lose that point eventually. So here's where I reposition again. I reposition on a little bit of a hill so that I can get hill advantage on these enemies. They started to spawn in the camp now, so I start getting advantage of that. I have a clear view on them running back towards the hangar, so I can pick them off. And at the same time, they don't really have the ability to shoot me back, unless if they go to the right side, which they did actually manage to shoot a explosive at me, which I was able to back off in time. But it's still a scary experience, because if you're going for a, right there for example, this guy was running in, if he was an assault, would have 2 clear shots of Panzerfaust ammo on me, and I would have been dead. So you always want to make sure of your surroundings. You got to have full awareness. I was being a little bit more laid back and more so just trying to get as many kills as I can and risking it a bit. But at the same time, I was also trying to be as aware as possible. There's a guy right there, picking them off. Making sure you kill them as fast as possible so they don't have any chance to shoot you whatsoever. Alright, so again, I decided to go around the back because I see multiple enemy markers, which distracted me. I saw the enemy right in front of me, but I decided to ignore it. He was an assault, so he had a really good chance of killing me. Again, do not do this. As you can see, I'm taking damage. If any of these direct fired hit me, I would be much less HP than I should be right now. I got really lucky. However, here's another mistake. There's another tank over there, and he shoots me, and I lose more than half of my HP because of that Panzerfaust and the tank hitting me. I quickly use my instant heal. That gives me a little bit of repair, but then the tank shoots me again and I lose more durability. I have to get out of there. I have to go right back to the repair station, and this makes me lose time, and I could have possibly died. So again, do not make risks like this. Just take it slow. Go around your teammate's side. Your tank is meant for sniping, not for going in and taking damage. Alright, so now we're back over in this area, and now all the enemies are in the A point in the camp. I see the Tiger tank that was shooting at me before, so I just harass him a little bit with some shells. He ends up backing off without hitting me once, and he just decides to play it safe. I almost did kill him though, and this is where you can prove that the Scout tank is actually really powerful against other vehicles. Even without the AP rounds, I just did 103 durability damage before he backed away. And that was at far distance too. If you're close, you actually have a way better chance of killing them because them getting behind cover is much less. So I'm up here, and I'm not looking at A yet because I want to make sure I'm clearing out this side section where all the enemies, some of the enemies sneak around like snipers and stuff, but sometimes assault. And you want to make sure that part's clear so then they're not going to be sneaking up on you, so you have a free reign looking into A to clear out all the enemies. As you can see right there, a guy right there in assault just shot 2 Panzerfausts at me, but he missed. And I pick off one of these enemies over here. And yeah, so that's what I did. I just decided to clear out this side. You always want to make sure that any flank on you is cleared 100% and you're not having second thoughts about what's happening on the side to your right, and you just want to focus on something in front of you. So A got capped without my help in any way. So with A being capped, this is when the match starts to get really interesting and the kills start to rack up. So I decided to go resupply one more time before I make a giant push on the enemy B cap. And so the enemy has A right now, and I just decided to look over A to make sure that our team is going to keep it. And make sure that the enemies are not actually on A right now. And it looked like it was pretty secure, so I decided to head on over to B to see how many kills I can actually rack up. With all the enemies spawning over at B, this gets really interesting. So I'm fully resupplied, and I decided to stop next to this rock here to give me a little bit of protection. And I look over at the array tower, and suddenly they all get spotted right in front of me. A whole cluster of enemies, and the kills start racking up. Getting kills with both the main cannon and the MG gun secondary. The kills just happen, just one after the other, just murdering them, and there is nothing they can do. They can't shoot rockets at me. They will just miss, most of the time at least. The chances of them being 100% accurate both times with a Panzerfaust will just not happen, because if I do get hit by one, I can always back off and be aware of the second ones. And my teammates are regressing on them. They just don't have the chance to shoot back at me. You have free reign of shooting at these enemies with the scout tank and just sniper shooting them. And this is the perfect example of why this gun with the rockets and the MG is way better than the 20mm. Is for sniping purposes. You can get kills without having to worry about dying at all. It's amazing, and I absolutely love it. The rockets are a little bit of a good, decent thing, but it's mostly for killing enemies that get close to you. And here you guys go. I'm going to let you guys enjoy the rest of this gameplay. Not much else to commentate on, but this was just a really interesting game. I hope you guys do enjoy my 47-0, and I'll see you guys later. Maybe some more vehicle gameplay for Battlefield if you guys are interested in that. With that being said, hope you guys do enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next video.